Hello. Welcome to our new night story. Now let's relax slowly and move on to our story. As the sun rises over the sands of the arid Arizona desert, a team of 3 embarks on an adventure filled with secrets. Jake Tanner is a former Marine, a nature guide who knows the area. Behind his calm demeanor, this middle-aged man has the courage to face any challenge. Next to him was the sharp-eyed journalist Sarah Dawson. Sarah was known for her quick thinking and investigative skills. She was always looking for a new story on the horizon. But little did she know that this time, the story waiting for her at the end of the road would be the biggest adventure of her life. The final member was Lucas Grady, a cartographer and archaeologist with an enthusiastic, adventurous spirit. The trio stopped the car in an area surrounded by sand dunes and began to examine the surroundings. Lucas pulled out an old, unworn map from his bag. This map contained legends about a route to a gold mine that was said to be lost in Arizona. The locals said that the mine was guarded and that those who sought gold never returned. But instead of believing this, Lucas was convinced that the gold mine was reached through a secret passage shown on a lost map. Lucas spread out the map and pointed to the marked spot. It says here that there was a pass used by the ancient natives. If we're on the right track, we should be able to find it a few miles away, he said excitedly. Jake scanned the desert and said, "Lucas, there's nothing to miss here. The desert is so flat that everything is obvious. But maybe there really is a hidden passage." His experience told him the map was dangerous, but the young man's determination spurred him on. Sarah adjusted her lens, took a photo, and turned to Lucas. "Do you think this map is really accurate? Or are we just chasing a dream?" she asked. Lucas smiled. "Sarah, this is not a fantasy. The native people of Arizona considered these passes sacred and protected them. The documents I found also show that this map is authentic," he said, and pointed to the corner of the battered map. "This is a marking from the early 1800s. I think they were hiding gold or something else." Jake wanted to join Lucas in his excitement, but he tried to be careful. "If we're here, we have to be careful. This passage could bring other dangers," he said, carefully taking his binoculars out of his bag and looking ahead. After about an hour of walking, they reached a spot marked by the locals. It was a rocky pass with some ancient carvings on it. Lucas placed his hand on the carvings and began to examine them. "The symbols here bear the marks of the guardians. We need to find the right way in," he said. Sarah stared at the reliefs in astonishment. "So this is some kind of code?" she asked. Lucas nodded. "Yes, there are some symbols here. It's an ancient language used by the natives. I think we need to decipher a portal." Jake was checking the surroundings while watching what Lucas was trying to do. The desert was calm and quiet, as if trying to distract them. But Jake felt that danger could arise at any moment. While the trio waited in front of the gate under the heat of the sun and tried to find a solution from the ancient reliefs, Jake suddenly noticed a moving shadow. "Hurry up," he said in a low voice. "We are not alone here." Sarah and Lucas were alerted by Jake's warning and began to look around silently. There was movement behind a large rock nearby. Jake silently grabbed his rifle and signaled the other two to be careful with his eyes. At that moment, a man emerged from behind the rock and approached them. He appeared to be dressed in desert clothes and had a dusty face. The stranger raised his hands in a friendly manner. "Hey, calm down," he said in a gentle voice. "My name is Tom Riley. I know I'm a stranger, but when I saw you I wanted to help." Jake paused for a moment, but still held his rifle. "Tom Riley, what are you doing here?" he asked suspiciously. I assume you're doing the same thing, Tom said, smiling, and glanced at the map in Lucas's hand. You're following this map, aren't you? I can help you. I've heard the story of this mine, too, and I've been in the area for a long time. Sarah glanced at Jake, and then turned to Tom and asked, do you have any proof of your credibility? Tom nodded. I know where you can find water in this desert. If you don't trust me, you'll have to find your own way, he said with confidence. Jake noticed the confidence in Tom's words and lowered his rifle and said, very well, Tom, but be careful. If you try to lead us astray, you may be lost in this desert forever. Tom smiled slightly. I will help you find your way. But know this mine holds more than just gold. It also holds other secrets. The locals don't just guard this place for its treasure. There is a deep history here. Lucas looked ahead excitedly. The possibility that this stranger was telling the truth fueled his excitement even more. Then let's continue without wasting any time, he said, and tried to determine his direction by looking at the map. Jake, Sarah, Lucas and the mysterious stranger they had just met, Tom Riley, continued to move forward in the middle of the Arizona desert. The hot wind of the desert was burning their faces. After walking 4 hours among the sands, they approached the marked point on the map. Lucas looked around carefully, holding the map in his hand. There must be ruins of an ancient native temple somewhere near here, he said excitedly. According to the natives' beliefs, this temple was not only a religious site, but also housed a secret passage leading to the mine. Tom looked up at the horizon and pointed to a place where ancient stone pillars had been buried. There, he said, those stone pillars are the markings left by the natives. We are on the right track. The group walked towards the stone pillars in the sand. These structures were stone monuments that had stood here for centuries, resisting the forces of time and nature. The symbols on them were ancient inscriptions of the natives, each indicating that this was a sacred place. Sarah placed her hand on one of the stones. These symbols are really old, she said with admiration. This must be a place where history is stored. Sarah, be careful. These rocks aren't just any place. We don't know why the natives are protecting this place, Jake warned, watching Sarah closely. Lucas had already begun examining the symbols on the stones. These symbols must represent a great portal, he said enthusiastically. This is the entrance point on the map. At that moment, Tom turned to Jake and said, Jake, these people do not welcome intrusions into their sacred ground. If what we find here is more than we thought, we could be in trouble. Jake still wasn't sure if he could trust this new man they'd met, but he heeded Tom's warning and said, you may be right. But if Lucas is on the right track, we have to find this portal. As Lucas walked around the stone pillars, carefully examining the symbols, he suddenly noticed something. I found it, he said happily. These pillars look like a mechanism that can be moved to open a door. Jake and Tom began to look carefully at the place Lucas was pointing to. It did indeed look like a secret door that would appear if the pillars were moved in a certain order. Lucas turned to the others and said, okay, we need to pull these pillars to open the door. Everyone started to move carefully, pulling and pushing the pillars, trying to find the right order. Finally, a clicking sound echoed, and a trapdoor opened from the sand, revealing stone stairs leading down. Jake, Sarah, Lucas, and Tom looked at each other in surprise and excitement. There it is, said Lucas. This must be the passage to the mine. Jake took out his flashlight and entered the door. The others followed him. Stone stairs led down to a cold, dark cave. It was a mysterious path that led deep into the desert. The humidity and cold in the air created an atmosphere completely different from the scorching desert outside. When they went down the stairs, they opened up to a large area. There were ancient paintings and symbols of the natives on the walls. Lucas whispered in admiration when he saw these symbols. These could be telling an ancient story. The natives thought that this mine was home to more than just gold, but a greater power. Sarah raised her flashlight and took a closer look at the pictures on the wall. There seems to be a warning here that the mine is cursed, she said anxiously. If there is a curse here, it could be some kind of protection the natives put up to protect their mines. Then we must be careful, Jake warned, peering intently at the symbols on the walls. It seems there is not only gold here, but a power that guards the secrets of the past. But Tom seemed to put his concerns aside. They're just stories, he said with a wry smile. If you really believe in curses, you shouldn't have come all the way here. This mine could hold great wealth, and that's why we came here. At that moment, a rustling sound echoed from deep within the cave. Jake turned toward the sound and shined his flashlight. Who's there? He called. There was no answer, but the rustling grew closer. Lucas and Sarah followed Jake anxiously. Could these sudden sounds in the cave be traps set by the locals to protect their mine? Or was there really a curse protecting the mine's secrets? Jake leaned quietly toward the others and said, "Get ready. We may need to get out of here." At that moment, a group of people appeared from the depths of the cave. They were dressed in native clothing and carried flames. Their faces showed anger at the intrusion of strangers into their sacred lands. Jake calmly approached them, raised his hands in the air and said, "We are merely exploring. We are not treasure hunters." The leader of the natives stepped forward and approached Jake, and in a deep voice he said, "These lands are sacred. Those who enter here seek not only the gold, but the secrets of our history and our souls that must be preserved. You must leave. We simply want to understand this history," Lucas replied, stepping forward. "We mean no harm." But the leader's gaze hardened as he said, "Then why did you come so deep? This mine hides much more than an ordinary gold mine. If you do not leave, the guardians of this sacred ground will keep you here forever." Tom didn't like this one bit. He stepped forward and said, "Look, there's nothing holy or cursed here. We're looking for treasure, that's all." Jake turned to Tom, signaling him to be careful, and turned to the leader of the natives. "Give us a chance. We mean no harm. We merely seek to understand the history of this place," he said calmly. The leader thought for a moment, then made a sign to Jake and said, "There are secrets that protect us deep in this cave. If you truly have the right to be here, you must prove it yourself." Then he added, "But be careful as you proceed along the path that leads to the mine's secrets. Be on the lookout for the spirits that will try to guide you along the way." Jake, Sarah, Lucas and Tom listened carefully to the natives' warning. They did not know what dangers awaited them in this passage, but they felt there was no turning back now. This lost mine was not an ordinary treasure, but could hold deep historical secrets of America. As they advanced into the cave, Jake and his team began to pass through corridors filled with ancient murals. The interior of the cave grew colder, the damp air weighing down on them with every step. The dazzlingly detailed murals were filled with scenes of ancient native legends and the power that lay deep within this mine. "This place looks like some kind of ceremonial site," Sarah said, shining her flashlight at the drawings on the walls. "Like this mine was a religious center for the Native Americans," Lucas murmured as he examined the surroundings carefully. Perhaps the natives were guarding more than just gold in this mine. What lies here may not only be gold, but also the secrets of the past. At that moment, Tom saw a shining light in a large room ahead and headed toward it. "There's something here," he said excitedly. In the middle of the room, in the center of a circle dug in the ground, was a glowing stone slab. On the slab, symbols in ancient native languages glittered. Jake approached the stone slab and examined the symbols on it carefully. "These symbols, this could be a warning," he said. Trying to decipher the symbols, he continued, "When foreign hands touch sacred ground, a power will awaken from the depths of the underworld." Sarah shivered and approached Jake. "Could this be the curse they told us about?" she asked anxiously. "It's just a legend, written to scare people," said Tom impatiently, reaching for the plaque. "The only mystery about this place is that it hides a great fortune." At that moment, as Tom touched the slab, the inside of the cave suddenly began to shake. Dust began to fall from the ceiling, and the stone slab trembled, sending a rising energy through them. Sarah shrieked as she backed away in panic. "Tom, what did you do?" Lucas gripped the walls with his hands to keep his balance. "This is not a good sign. We may have disturbed the spirits of the underworld." Jake took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, and led everyone to a safer part of the cave. "We need to follow this path. If this is anything more than a trap, we need to find a way out," he said with determination. But at that very moment, figures dressed in ancient native clothing and masked faces emerged from a dark corner of the cave. Their appearance was almost ghostly, and their movements were almost supernatural. Although Jake could not be sure whether these figures were real or not, he understood that these sacred guardians were the spirits who guarded the depths of the mind. Tom stepped back when he saw them, and whispered in fear, "What's that?" Sarah turned to Jake and said quietly, "Jake, we have to get out of here." But Jake shook his head and replied resolutely, "We are not leaving until we find the secret of this mine. Even though this place hides a curse according to the natives' belief, there must be some real clue to us." The guardians began to make a sound that echoed through the cave, with whispers and ancient prayers. Jake could feel each of these mystical sounds as a sacred warning, a warning to protect them and to force them out. But he would not return after coming this far. Lucas caught Jake's gaze and said to him with confidence, "Even if we get lost here, it's worth it to find the hidden secrets of history, that we've come this far." The others nodded in agreement. Jake realized that the guards had left a gap, showing them the way. "That's a sign," he said. "They're not blocking our path. They're taking us where we need to go." Accompanied by the guards, the group walked deeper into the cave. The journey became increasingly daunting as they passed through dark and narrow passages, but eventually they reached a large chamber. In the center of the chamber stood a large gold-plated chest filled with native symbols. This could be it," Lucas said in awe. "The legendary treasure of the mine is hidden inside this chest." Jake took a deep breath and approached the chest. As he looked at the symbols carved on the chest, he realized that this treasure was not just a fortune. Inside were old documents and sacred texts that contained the ancient secrets of these lands. The real secret of the mine was a treasure that the natives had been trying to protect for centuries, a treasure where nature and faith came together. These are sacred texts, the natives' secrets of living in harmony with nature, Sarah said, examining the documents inside the chest. "I understand why it is so important to protect this treasure. This is a legacy from the past," Jake said with deep respect, placing his hands on the chest. "Understanding their history and beliefs is the real treasure we will carry with us when we leave here." At that moment, the guards from the cave appeared once more, forming a circle around the chest. They bowed their heads respectfully to Jake and his team, as if they were approving of their intentions. So the treasure was actually the sacred heritage of this land, Tom said with a deep sigh, his voice full of regret. This chest must remain, Jake whispered, his expression a lesson learned from the experience. We are merely spectators to their legacy. The Guardians showed Jake and his team the way out of the cave. When they reached the end of the passage, the Guardians disappeared one by one, and Jake greeted them with a grateful look. When they left the cave, the sun had risen, and golden light sparkled in the desert. Sarah approached Jake and put her hand on his shoulder. This has been a much more rewarding adventure than we ever imagined, she said. Here lies not only history, but a heritage that all people must respect, Luca said, looking out to the horizon. And we must preserve this secret forever, Tom, with the profound change that this experience brought to him, said. From now on, I will pursue the values that history has entrusted to us, not money and ambition. This secret is ours now, Jake said to his team. Coming here with this wisdom and respect for the sacred heritage of the natives has been our greatest asset. The Arizona desert would continue to leave many unknowns behind. However, Jake and his team left that desert with the lessons they learned from the past, having witnessed a centuries-old secret. This adventure was not only a search for treasure, but also a journey into the depths of history. And every footprint they left would continue to exist forever as a sign of respect for history.